Throughout recorded history, humanity has documented strange sounds and mysterious voices. But in the modern era of technology, something unprecedented has occurred. We now possess audio recordings of phenomena that believers claim is demonic. These recordings exist, they can be heard, and they challenge our understanding of what is possible. Today we examine the darkest demonology cases where audio evidence survives. We will hear recordings that investigators have documented, emergency calls that were made, and sounds that were captured during exorcism procedures. Let the evidence speak for itself. The earliest systematic documentation of allegedly demonic audio dates back to the 1970s. During the exorcism of Anneliese Michel in Germany, the two Catholic priests conducting the ritual made audio recordings. These were not recordings made for entertainment or for public consumption. They were made for the church, for documentation purposes, to record what was happening during the exorcism sessions. 67 sessions were recorded over the course of 9 months. The recordings total approximately 100 hours of material. Some portions of these recordings have been made available to researchers and documentarians. What do the recordings actually capture? On the recordings, we hear a young woman who is speaking in multiple different voices. The voice changes dramatically from moment to moment. She produces sounds that are described by listeners as guttural, inhuman, and deeply disturbing. She claims to be possessed by multiple entities. She speaks names. She makes statements purporting to come from demonic beings. The recordings are authentic. They were preserved by the church. They were later entered into evidence during a criminal trial in 1978. However, what is crucial to understand about these recordings is what they do not prove. The audio shows a person in severe psychological distress. The person sounds suffering, tormented, and confused. Psychiatric experts who have analyzed the recordings note that the multiple voices and altered vocalizations are consistent with dissociative identity disorder and severe psychiatric crisis. The disturbing nature of the recordings does not itself establish that what was recorded is demonic. It establishes that something deeply wrong was happening with Anneliese Michel's mental and physical state. The recordings also capture something else. They capture the sound of her deteriorating physical condition. As the recordings progress chronologically from September through June, her voice becomes progressively weaker. She sounds increasingly exhausted. Her family had placed her on a severe diet during the exorcism, and she was consuming almost no food. By the end of the recording sessions, you can hear in her voice the effects of malnutrition and physical decline. She died 2 weeks after the final recording was made, weighing only 88 pounds. Let us move to another significant case with audio documentation. In 1989 in the United States, a woman named Latoya Ammons and her family reported experiencing demonic phenomena in their home. The case attracted the attention of paranormal investigators, clergy, and eventually law enforcement. Police responded to the home on multiple occasions. The family's claims were documented by local news media. Recordings were made during investigations. The audio that survives from the Latoya Ammons case includes recordings of strange sounds captured in the home. There are recordings of voices, sounds described as growling, and unexplained noises. Some of the recordings were made by paranormal investigators. Some were captured incidentally during police and clergy visits. The audio is disturbing to listen to. It contains sounds that many find difficult to explain. However, the investigation that followed reveals the documented reality behind these recordings. Mental health professionals assessed the family. Child Protective Services became involved. Investigations revealed a complex situation of family dysfunction, mental health crisis, and in some instances, behavior that appeared to be deliberately staged for attention. The strange sounds captured on audio, while genuinely mysterious sounding, were never definitively proven to be anything other than environmental noise, intentional vocal production, or sounds created by family members themselves. The recordings documented mysterious phenomena, but they did not establish that the phenomena were demonic in nature. One of the most significant pieces of audio documentation in demonology cases comes from emergency response recordings. In 1987, a woman in France made an emergency call to police claiming that she was possessed and that a demonic entity was speaking through her. The call was recorded by the emergency dispatch system. In the recording, we hear the woman's voice becoming distorted. She makes inhuman sounds. She claims that a demon is present in her body. She is clearly in extreme distress. The audio of this emergency call is remarkable because it documents a moment of acute psychological crisis in real time. The woman sounds as though something genuinely abnormal is happening to her. However, when police and medical personnel arrived, they found a woman experiencing a severe psychiatric episode. She was transported to a psychiatric facility. She was evaluated by mental health professionals. Treatment with psychiatric medication resolved her symptoms. The phenomenon captured on the emergency recording, while disturbing and unusual, was determined to be a psychiatric emergency rather than a supernatural one. Consider also the documented audio from the case of Roland Doe in Maryland during 1949. While the most famous recordings from this case are anecdotal accounts written down later, some audio documentation does exist. Recordings were made of exorcism sessions. In these recordings, we hear a young male voice, distorted and changed. The boy makes sounds described as demonic. He speaks in an altered voice. He makes statements that observers found inexplicable. What is important to note about the Roland Doe recordings is that they were never subjected to scientific analysis during their creation. They were made by priests who already believed that possession was occurring. The recordings themselves were interpreted through the lens of that belief. Modern audio experts who have listened to these recordings note that the sounds produced, while unusual, are consistent with vocal techniques that any human can produce with sufficient practice or under conditions of extreme psychological distress. They do not demonstrate anything that lies outside the range of human vocal capability. They do not demonstrate anything that lies outside the range of human vocal capability. In 2005, a Dutch television program conducted an investigation into alleged demonic possession and exorcism. They recorded actual exorcism sessions with the permission of participating clergy. The audio captured on these recordings shows people undergoing exorcism rituals. They produce strange vocalizations. They claim to be possessed. The audio is disturbing and the emotional intensity is genuine. What the television investigation also documented was the psychological state of the individuals before, during, and after the exorcism. They documented follow-up psychiatric evaluations. They documented the power of suggestion and expectation. The investigation revealed that the intensity of the phenomena often corresponded to the intensity of the belief that possession was occurring. When observation was less confrontational and more clinical, the dramatic phenomena diminished. A particularly significant case involves the audio recordings made during the exorcism of the Eklund family in Iowa. In the 1920s, a priest recorded sessions during what was believed to be a demonic possession, affecting multiple family members. The audio recordings from these sessions have been preserved. On the recordings, we hear multiple voices making strange sounds, claims of demonic entities, and what sounds like genuine distress from the individuals involved. However, historical investigation into the Eklund case has revealed that several factors were at play. The family was isolated and lived in a remote area. They were subjected to intense religious pressure. One family member had a documented history of mental illness. The exorcism sessions themselves involved rituals designed to provoke responses from the alleged demons, creating a situation where dramatic vocalizations and emotional outbursts were essentially solicited and expected. The audio recordings document psychological pressure and religious ritual rather than supernatural phenomena. Modern paranormal investigation groups have made numerous audio recordings in locations claimed to be haunted or demonically possessed. These recordings often capture strange sounds, unexplained voices, and audio phenomena that cannot immediately be explained. These recordings are presented as evidence of supernatural activity. However, acoustic experts and sound engineers who have analyzed these recordings consistently find natural explanations. Electronic interference, environmental noise interpreted through expectation, whined through structures, and sounds created by the investigators themselves are the typical findings when rigorous analysis is applied. One critical aspect of audio evidence in demonology cases is the issue of interpretation. A sound recording is objective, but what that recording means is subject to interpretation. A person who already believes in demons may interpret an ambiguous sound as demonic. A person approaching the same recording skeptically may interpret it as environmental noise or human vocalization. The recording itself does not determine the interpretation. The beliefs and expectations of the listener do. Consider the phenomenon of electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. Paranormal investigators for decades have claimed to capture voices of spirits and demons on audio recordings. They use recording equipment to capture what they believe are supernatural messages. Thousands of hours of alleged FB recordings have been made and preserved. However, scientific investigation into FB consistently reveals that what is being recorded are either sounds that are ambiguous and subject to pareidolia, the human tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in random data, or sounds created by equipment malfunction or interference. The most famous FB recordings often sound like distorted human speech or unidentifiable sounds. When researchers ask participants to listen to the same recordings and guess what they hear, the answers vary widely and depend largely on whether the listener has been told what they are supposed to be hearing. This demonstrates that the interpretation of audio evidence is heavily influenced by expectation and prior belief. In several cases, researchers have conducted controlled experiments. They have recorded people in environments claimed to be haunted or demonically possessed using multiple recording devices simultaneously. They have used equipment from different manufacturers. They have recorded in the same locations with people who believe in supernatural phenomena and with people who are skeptical. The results are consistent. When identical recording methods are used, the audio captured is the same, regardless of the beliefs of the people present. The audio recordings that do exist from documented possession and exorcism cases represent some of the most significant evidence available. They are objective, preserved, and subject to analysis. They show people in genuine distress. They show people making sounds that seem otherworldly. But they also show, upon careful analysis, people experiencing documented psychiatric conditions, people under severe psychological pressure, and people in situations designed to produce emotional and behavioral extremes. The documentation of demonology through audio technology has not supported claims of demonic possession. Instead, it has supported the findings of medical science and psychiatry. The documented audio evidence overwhelmingly indicates that what was interpreted as demonic in previous centuries is now understood as psychiatric illness, neurological disorder, or psychological crisis. What these audio recordings ultimately document is not the existence of demons, but the existence of human suffering, human confusion, and human capacity to interpret that suffering through the frameworks available to us. In the era before modern medicine, that framework was demonic possession. In the modern era, with access to psychiatric evaluation and neurological investigation, we have better explanations for the same phenomena. The darkest demonology cases with audio evidence are ultimately documented cases of human crisis met with inadequate understanding and treatment. They are recordings of people who needed psychiatric help receiving religious ritual instead. They are audio documents of tragedy and loss. The recordings preserve not evidence of the supernatural, but evidence of the necessity for proper medical and psychological care for those experiencing severe mental health crises and psychiatric emergencies.